Welcome to the Way of Biohacking. This is Dr. Tay.
Hi, I'm Linda, Nutritionist Yogini. What's up, what's up?
Hi, I'm an intern of Tay's. My name's Nikki.
And today's main topic is mental health. All right. So I think mental health has been a very hot topic, especially the current situation that we're in. And now, in my office at least, I'm seeing more and more cases in regards to more and more mental health. I think prior to this whole worldwide situation, mental health was, most likely was stress, anxiety. Now is coupled with depression and people not knowing how to handle the situation. So let's first talk about what is depression. Let's look this up. All right, if we go to this is from dbsalliance.org. It says that major depression disorder affects approximately 17.3 million American adults, and that's about 7.1, and US population 18 and older. And major depression disorder is more prevalent in women than in men, according to the Journal of the American Medical Association in 2003. And 1.9 million children, 3 to 17, have diagnosed with depression. And adults with depressive disorder or symptoms have 64% greater risk of developing coronary artery disease. All right, so that's depression. And the other flip side is anxiety. This is an article written back in August of this year, August 13, 2021, The Recovery Village. And an anxiety disorder involves excessive, irrational fear and worry beyond what a typical person would experience with everyday stressors. Anxiety disorders statistics provide information about who is affected by various anxiety disorders and the prevalence of these disorders. And if you look a little bit more closely, it affects about 3.6% or 264 million people around the world. Wow, out of 7 million. That's quite a number. Considering the fact that America is about 328 million, so it's affecting like the whole country if there was putting all these people. What are we going to say?
Yeah, so I study a lot of Eastern philosophy, and something I find in Buddhism is a huge part of it is learning how to be in the present moment, and that's why we practice meditation. Modern society really fixates on what you should be able to achieve, what you should be able to have, and a focus on lack. And what you don't have, what you need, and what you need to buy. And I believe that causes a lot of anxiety, the belief that there is this material desire latent inside of you. So unable to understand that right now in the present moment you have everything that you need, and a fixation on the past of what didn't happen and worrying about the future of what is to happen is another cause of anxiety.
And I like how you mentioned meditation. There was a few times where I've been super stressful scenarios. Like, for example, I was once in an MRI machine after surgery. I had a post-op MRI, and I felt myself building up anxiety. I felt it. I was in a lot of pain. I just got out of surgery that day, I think, and I felt it building up. And then I kind of closed my eyes and I kind of meditated a little bit, and I took deep breaths and I focused on my breathing, and I was able to calm myself down, or else I would have had a panic attack in the machine. I would have had to do it all again. But I took a step back and I looked at, I kind of processed the whole situation. Like, all right, I made it through surgery. I'm okay. You just got to get through this. And I was able to relax, and I was okay.
Like breathing, meditation, I think these things are very, very important components of, dealing with your mental health, right? And I just want to be very clear about, to our listeners, is that I'm a firm believer, from what I've seen in my clinical office, is that some people needs to be put on medication. Like, that's a given. And this is not to say, me being a holistic practitioner, that everyone should engage, and this is like an truly alternative to, but it does help minimize a lot of these things. And just like a muscle, if you breathe for an extended period of time and keep it up as a lifestyle, and you can control huge amounts of it. And for people who get really good at it, can possibly stay off medication, right? And those who don't may need to be on medication. So I just want to make that clear out there, not to give false impressions. And there's no shame in taking medication for your mental health. And that's another thing. There's no shaming anyone about how they deal with mental health. But in this podcast, I just want to be clear that there are tools to talk about meditation and breath work, which kind of falls into the same line, right?
I also think that there are some like herbal supplements like CBD and like magnesium is shown to really relax people, and theanine that could be used for someone with anxiety that can really relax them. I mean, personally, I use CBD all the time when I feel anxious or in the morning or at night when I need to relax, and it helps me a lot, and I think someone with anxiety can definitely benefit from it.
I used to be a resident in the state of California, and I went to a cannabis doctor, and they asked me why, and I told them I had social anxiety. He thought I was joking, but I was serious. Using marijuana really does help calm my nerves and help me stay grounded and be in the moment so that I could easily socialize in a situation with a lot of different people that I have to meet.
For me, like what helps me, I can't say I have a lot of anxiety. I do have a lot of stress, and it's usually like business related and like, you know, obligations. So I've been doing, you know, breath work, I guess technically since high school, because I used to be an avid runner, and for some reason I knew that my stress tolerance was a lot higher than other people, and I did experience like panic attacks, but I didn't know, you know, what a panic attack was, and I didn't know when I was going through it. But once I learned meditation, and like there was a guy named Dr. J, one of my teachers, and he really broke the concept of meditation in terms of like, there's 3 things in meditation that you need to pay attention to. One is your body. Are you in an excited state? Are you holding, you know, contractions in your body? Are you one of those people that really clenches your fist or clench your jaws when you're stressed out, or hold neck and shoulder tensions, or these weird habits that people may have with their body? Or are they all relaxed? 2 is your breath work. If most people who are stressed out, they tend to hold their breath for a very long time, and that may develop into an anxiety if they are thinking really fast about their problems and they go into repeat mode. Like, you just thought of, you know, beginning to end of your problem, but you're putting it on to repeat mode for the next 2 hours, which is totally unnecessary, and you're not breathing the whole time you're thinking about this. And last is your mind. You know, can you control your mind? And you said your mind was going to an anxious state, and you really gave yourself an opportunity to start breathing. And just like Linda says, what did that bring you? Into the present moment, right?
I like how you brought up the people that hold their breath. I've also seen the opposite, which are people that take very rapid breaths.
Yes.
People that breathe rapidly through their mouth when they're stressed out, and then you get a lot of upper chest breathing as opposed to using the entirety of your lungs to take deeper breaths. And when you use only the shorter hyper breaths, you are activating that fight or flight mode in your body, which is kind of like a vicious cycle there.
Yeah. Tom, all of our mutual friend Tom Jasinski, the neuroarchitect, he, at our last cold plunge, he was giving the thing. He was talking about how breathing inhale, is kicking your body with sympathetic mode. And when you breathe out, you go into parasympathetic mode. So I think the component of one of my like cornerstones of breathing technique is breathing 1-to-2 ratio. And there's so many breathing techniques out there, and this is the one that I promote the most to all my patients across the board, because 1, it helps build muscles of respiration. 2, by breathing out longer than you're breathing in, it allows you to really calm down more because of the parasympathetic mode. And the more you practice this, you're able to de-stress so much more, right? And that's one component. And the other, last podcast we talked about the importance of sleeping, right? And for those who are not sleeping well, then you wake up tired, then you're not bringing your A game, and then you are, very vulnerable to anxiety, depression, because you're not able to perform at your performance. Huh?
Sickness even.
Yeah, sickness even. All right. And the last thing I think is something we don't talk about, like how we treat each other and one another, right? And I want to focus on that topic because, we already beat the dead horse with the breathing, right? And the sleep. And so we're in New York, right? I happen to be a very sarcastic individual, and I surround myself with people who have similar sense of humors. And, we could take a punch, as they say, we come out swinging, right? But at the same time, there's a population that, this type of, cultures can be very, very hurtful, and they have a hard time understanding it. And we need to show up a little bit differently to these people. And one of the things that I find myself doing is, when I make all these jokes and stuff like that, I wonder to myself, am I really hurting people's feelings? Or am I giving people a very hard time? So now I'm just trying to make a conscious effort to still be funny and keep the art form. But at the same time, I also want to develop an art form where I'm talking to people and having a real social impact, I would say, right? So I think Linda, being in my life, I'm more careful about what I say because I do say a lot of dumb things. Nikki, you too, right? And so I think that those are important things. You teach children's yoga. Like, how do you create a space for kids to talk about these things?
Yeah, so I think Tay brings up a really good topic in terms of mental wellness, really having a community. And in terms of teaching kids, I try to bring, of course, my best foot forward. I always remember that I have to lead by example. Mm-hmm. So I always try to be uplifting. I try to help the kids find their own power within them, and really using positive messages physically and mentally and emotionally, and creating a safe space in which they could share how they feel. And if kids are always saying the first thing that's on their mind, if anyone says anything troublesome or something that causes any red flags, I question it. I don't necessarily put a stop or halt to anything, but we really try to delve deeper into any topics and have a discussion about it to clarify everything, because I want to make sure that every child is heard, and that's really important. And something else that we find hard in society is having someone that's there to listen, and that's part of the community aspect.
And I really like how you brought up yoga, because I'm a really big advocate for hobbies towards someone's mental health. So personally, I have a lot of hobbies. I have a few hobbies. I skateboard, snowboard, and I like to always be progressing with those things. And it kind of keeps my mind busy. Like, I'm always thinking about, this or that. I'm never really not thinking about one of those things. So people that don't have hobbies, their minds kind of go blank, and that's when they'll have, a panic attack or an anxiety attack. And just having something to constantly progress with is something that's really good for your mental health. You can really benefit from. And whether it's gardening or podcasts, like whatever, this is a hobby of mine also, like just something to keep yourself busy.
Okay.
Yeah, I like how you brought up gardening, because that's something in which you could really see the fruit of your labor, literally and figuratively. Mm-hmm. And that's something really important for people. Not so much this instant gratification, but being able to put effort into something and then reaping those fruits eventually and with time.
I think one of the things that I did with my brother that I really enjoyed was going fishing with him, because I used to have so many friends in college, and I was always hanging out. I really didn't get to really stop and just look at the ocean and just trying to get this fish, and just very simple, very, very simple. And I found it very meditative, even though I didn't know what meditation was. And I think that calmed me down. And I think it's all about finding the good balance of what you can enjoy And I think for people who are very introverted, might find something in a social setting, like a yoga class, where they're doing something very individualistic, yet but they're part of this class. And if the class is
community of it,
like a community of it, right? It's not like where you just come and say, okay, I did my class, I gotta leave. But if the people next to you say, oh, what is your name? Oh, okay, I'll see you next class. And I think that creates a sense of belonging for people. And I think a lot of teenagers are looking for something like that, whether it's amongst their peers, in sports groups. And I think when those kids are not able to connect with their, I guess, peers, right? And have social validity, because kids, when they're growing up, they look for validation from their parents so much, right? And as they detach away from the parents, they look for validation from their peers. And that transition is hard when they can't find that, right? So if you're a parent and you have kids who are, not having a hard time like with their mental health, finding a space for them to meet friends with similar interests is very helpful, right? Like a good hobby, like Nikki says.
Yeah, I think that really ties in with hobbies. And one thing I would also like to talk about is, you mentioned when you were going over the depression statistics that there was a link between that and heart disease.
Yeah.
Which tells me that there's a connection with diet and the gut. And I know that your gut, your microbiome, has a huge effect on your mental health. So a poor microbiome, you might have, some sort of mental problem, whether it's depression, anxiety, and you might not even know, but it could be because of a poor gut health. And some signs of that would be like acne or like thin hair. And so that it really does tie into how you eat. So if you eat a really well-balanced diet, your microbiome is going to be way healthier, and it's going to give you a healthier brain.
I mean, one of the most important thing that I found when I became a father, and when my daughter was just a baby, like, there's no mental health, like, wah, you just go there and like, okay, what's wrong, and like, you either try to burp it, feed it, put it to sleep, or spend time making eye contact and smile. But as she was, becoming like 3 years old, 4 years old, her emotions are like, like little things will set her off, and like her emotions are not stable. So I started looking into like how to raise a healthy child, not just like, physically, because nutrition wise, I think my wife was just going overboard with the whole organic baby thing. And so that part I knew, which, we were okay. But in terms of the mentality, I came across this guy named Dr. John Gottman. You guys ever hear of him?
I have not, no.
Okay. Dr. John Gottman, I believe he's the father of what they call emotional coaching. And he emotionally coaches people overall. And if you're a parent, and if you emotionally coach young children, these kids end up becoming the leaders of society. Right. And I was like, that's very interesting. So I was watching these case studies of these one kid who was like physically violent towards his mom when he's trying to talk to the mom about certain things, and the mom is having a conversation with an adult. The little kid, he must have been like 6 years old, something in that range, 8 years old, and he starts hitting the mom. You're not listening to me. You're not listening to me. And then he goes off, and he's got like a 2 or 3 year old sister, and he starts physically hitting her. And you see the house, being filmed through this study, and then the Dr. John Gottman's people goes to the family and says, all right, now we're gonna treat the mom. And the mom's like, you can see her in her face, like what do you mean you're gonna treat me? My child is the one with the problem, and you want to treat me? Like, you could see like the perplexion. And the whole therapy was role playing, where if I'm a kid, and then the psychologist pretends to be the child and presents like an emotional outburst reaction, and the mom has to say, step one was emotionally coach the child back into a state. And when I saw the changes, long story short, when I saw the changes towards the end of the video, the mom was not on site. The little girl, the sister, starts crying, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. And the boy comes back to the sister and says, oh, you're upset because you're hungry. And the little girl goes, yeah. And the little boy goes, all right, mom and dad says I cannot use a knife, but I'll bite the apple and give the pieces to you. Will that make it okay? And little girl goes, okay. And he starts biting the apple and giving her the pieces, and they share an apple, and they have a great relationship. But one thing, like, this kid would normally not do this, right? Would come to the kid and say, like, be quiet, stop crying, mommy's not here. You know, those are the real answers in life. So fast forward, having learned the technique, I think this was when my daughter was going to daycare, and this one girl wore a Princess Elsa dress to daycare. And so next day, Lena comes home. She wants to wear the Elsa dress, right? And my wife, she gets ready to go in the morning. And my Lena goes, I don't want to go to daycare. I want to wear the Elsa dress, right? And my wife goes, we're late. You can't put on the Elsa dress right now, right? And Lena goes, what? And I see this happening. I'm like, oh, time for emotional coaching, right? This is my opportunity. So I run over to Lena, you know, I get down to her eye level, and I say, you're upset because you don't get to wear the Elsa dress. And she goes, yes. She nods like, yeah, I'm very upset because I don't get to wear the Elsa dress. My friend was wearing it, and I told you guys, and now it's time to go to school. And then I'm like, okay, so then I know you're upset because of the whole Elsa dress. So I'm acknowledging how her feelings are, because most parents at this stage is, you can't wear the Elsa dress. That is the answer, and that's final. But they never address the emotional component. So I say, okay, I know why you're feeling like this and you're upset, but when you come home, would you want to put on the Elsa dress? And perhaps talk to mom in advance so that you can wear the Elsa dress to school. Is this what you want to do? And she walked out of the room like super happy. Like, and it didn't require, like, you know, dragging her out of the apartment and she's crying, looking at the door. Oh, I need to wear the Elsa dress. And I think, you know, having learned this, I use it on my patient base, and I try to use it on other people. And I think it's very, very contagious. You do this innately. I know this. Yeah. Even though you didn't know the technique, I know you do this innately with kids.
I think that's part of the acknowledgement and the listening, because kids want to be heard. And this doesn't only apply to kids, adults as well. And that's why a lot of people find talk therapy very effective as a form of keeping up with their own emotional and mental wellness.
How did you learn this? Because I've seen you do this. Yeah.
I think it came a lot with working with kids. I was a camp counselor for many years.
Okay.
And then eventually I became a mentor to camp counselors.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so working with youth, just being able, I think it's a very important leadership skill, being able to understand what the people that you're working with are looking for and what their needs are. And being able to apply that is a very important skill to have in terms of running an effective team.
And I think one thing that really contributes to kids when they're growing up understanding and things like that is resiliency. If you kind of raise them to be resilient, like, you know, say you were to just give her the dress and she went to school, I'm sure she would have been happy that day, but she wouldn't have learned from it. I think kind of raising them to be a little resilient will really help them in the long run with mental health and just kind of making personal decisions, things like that.
According to the Dr. John Gottman Institute, the study from his shows that you are a great parent if you're able to emotionally coach your child 20% of the time. your child will grow up very, very differently, because an emotionally developed child will grow up to become a leader, because a leader knows every person in their team, what emotions they're going through. And, oh, this guy's going through a hard time, let me give him some slack. This guy, he's super motivated, let us give him some more work. Like, the most emotionally intelligent person in a kindergarten classroom is obviously the teacher, because the teacher is not only aware of their emotions, but the emotions of every single child. Where the child, their mental state is still developing, so they only care about me. I want to do it. Me, pick me. Their ego plays a huge role into it. And people who get emotionally coached, they know about the feelings of other people. Yeah. So, we have breath work, right? We have sleep for mental health. What other ways, like, you guys do for your own mental health?
So what I mentioned before, talk therapy can be very effective. I saw a therapist for a while when I was really in my darkest times mentally. I was very lost. I was in a different city, living on my own. I was very miserable in a relationship that really did not serve me. And I found having a therapist, someone that can objectively listen to me and provide insight on what I was going through, was useful. I think having friends, of course, is very important. Friends that could truly listen to you, as opposed to giving you advice that serves themselves and what they want for you. Having someone objective to the situation is useful in terms of giving true feedback. And also having homework in terms of self-reflection was very useful for me as well.
So what I'll do is I'll always try to be busy. I'll go. I talked about hobbies before, but also, I used to have anxiety, and I know people with anxiety. I know a girl who had really bad anxiety before she went away to school, and then she went away and her anxiety was gone. So she kind of, when she got there, she realized, oh, this isn't so bad. I shouldn't be nervous, and it kind of went away. So kind of tackling, like, what are you nervous about? Okay, let's go and try to do it and see, okay, it's not so bad. And maybe those will kind of subside. So that's what I did when I had anxiety when I was younger. I used to have bad anxiety. I had anxiety about vomiting, like really bad. So I would watch videos of people throwing up, and it worked, and it went away. So I mean, I don't do that anymore because I don't have that fear anymore. But I used to have it pretty bad. I went to a therapist also, but now how I kind of keep my nerves eased is I just try to stay constantly busy. I get home, I don't have anything to do for the next few hours. All right, I'll go skateboard, or I'll go do something, read a book, like anything to keep yourself busy.
Okay. Like, I guess the hardest thing of 2021 this year for me was the PPP loan. The second one. The first one came right away, and I remember applying it for in February. And within 2-3 weeks, everyone I know started getting it. And everyone's like, oh, hey, you filled it out. You're a smart guy. You probably filled out everything correctly. It doesn't come. And March, April, May, and everyone I know got it. Every single, including my patients. And when I didn't get it, I was like, oh my God, this is really, and my wife asked me, did you get it? Did you get any notice? And that would just irritate the crap out of me. And it was it would eat me away. And my buddy Jules, he was like, hey, pray to Jesus. And I started praying. And not that I was searching for a miracle, right? I mean, it's a PPP loan. It's electronic file gets submitted, right? Right? And eventually it came. But I think, tapping into a higher power was, I think, cool, because I don't think I was ready to go to therapy for a PPP loan.
Right.
And I think I went to this great psychologist. Her name is Kiki, right? And I think when I had multiple offices, and I was shutting down a couple of them, and just the stress, the sheer amount of it, and talking to somebody like a therapist who knew how to listen to me very objectively, I can't help but to let it all out. Was very therapeutic, like, you know, externalizing something inside of me that was causing me a lot of stress, and having someone like actively listen, and like you said, you know, not trying to serve themselves through the conversation, I guess, but really like listen to me. I think that was very helpful. Yeah.
I want to go back to what Nikki was talking about, keeping yourself occupied in activities that you find fulfilling, I believe is really important. But on the flip side of that, we do live in a society where productivity is so important and at the forefront. I think it's also really important to give yourself permission to rest. I think that's overlooked a lot in terms of some people genuinely have so much on their plates, are constantly on the run, constantly running from work to gym to babysitting to whatever. Really giving yourself personal time to do what you want, be that a hobby or taking a nap or preparing a meal for yourself. These are all ways to self-soothe and take care of yourself and make time for yourself that's enriching and filling your own cup.
You're cooking. You mentioned cooking. I think it's so relaxing when I like actually take some time and I'll make myself a meal. It's super kind of therapeutic, and it's something I really enjoy.
What about you, Linda? Do you have anything that you cook that's like soul food, one might say?
Yeah, I do a lot of bone broths.
Okay.
I love the art of slow cooking. So everyone's always like, oh yeah, I have this like pressure cooker or Instapot, and I'm like, I have this Dutch oven. So super old school, but I love cooking beans and congee.
Congee. What is a Dutch oven?
It's a thick cast iron pot that's ceramic coated.
Ooh.
I have a cast iron skillet. So for like your Dutch oven, mine, it's my skillet. I'll get like a nice ribeye.
Yeah.
And I'll do like a really nice ribeye on a cast iron. That's like what I cook, my comfort meal, I guess.
For people who don't know Linda and Nikki very well, Nikki, he eats like really healthily. Like today we went to go eat. I had the roll with butter, and I'm like, this is not grass-fed butter.
It's kind of crazy how you could tell if butter's grass-fed or not.
Yeah,
I could just taste it, and I was like, all right, that's grain-fed.
And I'm like, I'm gonna eat this, right? Because I'm Tay. I could eat this.
Because I'm
Tay. But you know, Nikki eats like he knows, he respects his body so much that he only eats like the super healthy stuff. And Linda too, like these people, the people in front of me, they eat really healthily, a lot healthier than I do any day of the week. And that is not to say that I don't eat healthy as well. I do, but I'm very interested in like figuring out these recipes, right? Because yes, this is a podcast, but now we are developing a YouTube content.
Yeah, this will be on YouTube.
And I did make attempts to shoot things in the past, but I would be really happy for like Linda and I to, like, you know, because she's a registered dietitian, you know, you can't beat that, right?
Yeah, I'll never get there.
Right, and we could talk about like so many healthy recipes, because like the art of cooking, like if I was like cooking myself like a grain-fed steak, right, like T-bone or tomahawk.
It's still good.
It's still good,
but it's not the same.
But in my mind, I'm like,
chewier.
This is. I know it's causing inflammation.
The omega-6s are way too high.
Yeah, the omega-6s is way too high. Yeah.
So I want to tie this back to what Nikki brought up earlier about the microbiome and what makes food healthy. I'm all about choosing seasonal foods.
Yeah.
So right now it's late fall, preparation for winter, really trying to choose high protein, higher fat foods to prepare for winter, because winter, it's cold, it's a time to restore your body, and you got to make sure that you have those stores available. So I'll be choosing more cooked veggies, more beans, legumes, things that are heartier. Stews are definitely in season.
Yeah, I really I eat mostly meat and vegetables, and I'll change the amount of vegetables I eat, whatever, based on the time of year. So like in the summer and the spring, I'll eat much more veggies, and then as you know, fall and winter, I'll actually restrict my portion size of veggies, and I'll have more high fat foods. And I think, you know, really focusing on my diet and eating according to my body, the way my body responds, really affects my mental health. Like making small conscious decisions
Yeah.
to be a little healthier, like you're kind of working on yourself, I think that'll really improve someone's mental health.
Like, one of my buddies recently asked me, Tay, how do I get the energy to wake up early and work out in the morning before I start my day? How do I do that, right? And I said, wake up and look at the sun rays. And he's like, what do you mean? It's like, that's going to reset your bio rhythm, right? Your circadian clock to adjust so that, even though the alarm clock won't ring, if you do that like several days in a row, you should be able to wake up without the alarm on that time. So he's like, really? I'm like, it's like, what about through a window? I'm like, it would still work. I was driving on Northern Boulevard and the sun was coming into the car and it worked for me, right? So I think because I think now that winter's coming along, it's going to be darker, right? So people are, eating much more worse food, right? People who are not health conscious.
They eat worse and they do less physical activity.
Yeah.
So it's a recipe for disaster.
And at the same time, we're meeting our families and stuff like that. But for some people, that causes a lot of pain, right?
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things I want to talk about is, undoing like emotional like knots, right? If you have like anger and stuff like that, you should transform into, because in Eastern medical theory, we believe that emotions should always transform, right? Like in the 5 phases, right? And for those who are thinking like textbooks, right? This is not going to make sense to you guys, but for those people who are in Chinese medicine who are into classical theory, this is going to make more sense. Like water is the element of the kidney and the bladder, right? And in there is the emotions of like fear, right? But if you transform them into courage, right? Like fight or flight, like, it's funny how like on top of the kidneys is, fight or flight mechanisms. And then there's the liver, which is wood, and gallbladder is things like anger and uprush. Like anger is like when you're mad about something and you're very passionate about it, and uprush is like you could do something very positive with anger. Like look at people like Martin Luther King. He channeled his frustrations and angers to a beautiful speech and try to live that lifestyle.
Anger into action,
yes. Like when I go to the gym, I'll try to like purposely make myself angry so that I can like lift more. Like it really helps me.
Yeah. So those are transformation techniques, emotional transformation techniques. And the next one is fire, and there's 4 organs: heart, small intestine, pericardium, and the triple burner or the sanjiao, the 3 burners. And they have a range from like love to the opposite end of love, which is anxiety, which is so weird. Like love is something that you're so happy about and you're rapidly thinking about it and you're feeling it and all this stuff. And on the negative end is like anxiety, where you're doing that rapid thinking but it's something really bad. And next one is earth, like the spleen and stomach, the ability to digest things, right? And they deal with, what is that? Worry, yes. And planning, because worry and planning is there's a time and space displacement where you're worried about something in the future. You're not worried about something in the past, right? You're worried about something in the future. So like worried is like, tomorrow's gonna rain, oh no, right? But if you're a good planner, oh right, I got a raincoat, right? I got a rain boots, so I should be fine. If you plan it, it turns out okay. And last is the metal, or aka I would like to call it crystals. And it's the large intestine and the lungs, and they deal with emotions like sadness, loss, grief, and the positive effect is compassion, right? So you're like, oh, I feel bad for that. Like, how do I help that? So like charity and goodwill like comes from like these crystal elements.
And one thing I would like to mention that we haven't touched upon yet is cold exposure. And I think cold exposure could really help somebody with depression or anxiety or something, because personally, like, when I did my cold plunge, I came out of that really energized, and I felt like my blood flow and my brain was all lit up. Like, so if I went into that, you know, say with depression, I can't see myself coming out of that ice bath, you know, sad. Like, I was very happy, I was laughing, you know, my brain was lit up, I was in a good mood. So I think like exposure like that could benefit somebody.
Yeah, I think one of the guys who taught me and Tom about cold exposure, this guy, personal trainer / Wim Hof, you know, instructor, his name is Tom Basso, I think that's his name. And he was talking about when he was at the site with, you know, Wim Hof getting the training. Some of the people that will come to Wim Hof training are people who are like severely depressed, and when they go in there, they're like, they really break down from the pain, and when they come out of it, they're like, wow, that really hurt, and it kind of dwarfs the pain that they were mentally suffering from. And they're like, okay, I physically went through this challenge and I mentally toughed it out, and now I feel like these other little problems are a lot smaller, right? And the last thing I do want to talk about is, like, you know, exercise. Like, you know, if you're a weak person and, you know, you don't do exercise, and all of a sudden you do 20 push-ups a day every single day, and then you realize you could do more push-ups, and then when you walk into a room you see other people and you're like, oh, I could do more push-ups than this guy, you know, that kind of builds, you know, confidence. And that's just you know, push-ups, right? But same thing with yoga, right? The more yoga you do, you walk into a room, you could kind of like assess, like, who does better yoga here, or I'm more confident in doing my thing, I could express it better, right? I mean, Linda, you just came back from Costa Rica doing like 30-day yoga intensive, and you taught it there. Like, how do you see the people transform, and what did you see in yourself?
It really was an internal transformation that grew outwards. A lot of it was dealing with the emotional turmoil on the inside, and once you have that figured out, the body just becomes more pliable. So it's really dealing with all the inner muck that's latent and you've been suppressing, and once you're able to unleash that and work with it and see your shadows and embrace it, a lot of it has to do with inner child work, which is interesting. We started the podcast talking a lot about how to raise children. It's not too late. You could still work with your own inner child and figure out why you have all these emotions that you're working with. That's a huge part in terms of finding your own personal empowerment.
Plus to all the juices you drank that was different every day from the tropical area, right?
For sure. Again, back to the microbiome, making sure you're getting those antioxidants and having a strong immune system.
Yeah, because you came back with this like glow that we couldn't there was not like a location about the glow, but like even when we met, we're like, yeah, she has a glow. And then after you left, Mo was like, did you see the glow? I'm like, yeah, I saw the glow. Like, yeah, she had a glow, right? It's not me, right? There was a glow, yeah. All right. On that note, thank you for listening. Please like, share, and share with your friends. Our base of listeners is slowly increasing, and we love to see those numbers go up. We're putting a lot of effort, and we're going to be making some posters with
QR code.
The QR code, so that people can just scan their phone and listen to our podcast. And we're going to post them all over.
Yeah, this one will be on YouTube also. And
hopefully this episode will be on YouTube, and we're going to continue this work and talk about various topics. And until next time.
Yep, thanks for hanging around.
Peace.
Bye-bye.